Woodwalker by Emily B. Martin. Excerpt from Chapter 4. I jerked from sleep that night to a sound that was instantly familiar to me, a shuffling, shambling, grunting noise at the periphery of our campsite. I groaned inwardly. If Mona woke to find a bear inspecting our hanging packs, her shriek would wake the entire forest. I lifted my head an inch off my bedroll. The night was clear, and the waxing moon threw enough light through the trees to make out the dark, slope-shouldered shape in the shadows. I held still, watching the big head snuffle the ground. There's nothing here, I thought. Our food's in the trees. We haven't used soap in days. Nothing here, bear. It took a few muffled steps on the carpet of pine needles and raised its head toward our dangling packs. With a heave, it lifted itself onto its hind legs, stretching its nose into the air. But the line I had tied was too high. It snuffled loudly, and then flumped back down to the ground with a thud. Nothing here, I thought again. Go away before the queen wakes up and loses her mind. It sniffed the air again. Slowly, with many cautious pauses, it took several steps our way. We were lying 2 by 2 with our heads facing together. The bear was closest to Arlen, who was lying on his stomach with his head pillowed in his arms. Mona was on his other side. The bear bent its nose to the ground a few feet from Arlen's hip. It huffed the air. Colm was between me and the bear, lying on his back with one arm behind his head. Gingerly, I straightened my leg and prodded him with my toe. He twitched, but didn't wake. Colm, I whispered. The bear lifted its head and snorted. I nudged him again. Colm! With a grunt, he broke from sleep. Don't startle, I said softly. Don't shout. There's a bear next to Arlen. He blinked several times but didn't speak. I could see his head inclined slightly as he searched for the animal, now standing tensely by Arlen's hip. I'm going to try to talk it down, I said. I need you to stand up with me, slowly. He nodded once. The bear grunted. Mona stirred. Hello, bear, I said in an ordinary voice. Hello. The bear startled backward. Slowly, I sat up. Sit up, Colm, I said in the same level voice. Hello, bear. We're big. We're big and uninteresting. Colm pushed himself up on his elbows. There's nothing here for you. Colm, stretch your cloak out. Look, bear, see how big we are? The bear took several swaying steps backward. It snorted again. In the moonlight, I saw Mona open her eyes. Don't scream, I said sharply. She didn't scream. She drew in a sharp, audible gasp and scrambled upright. The bear snorted again. Unfortunately, Arlen wasn't even that composed as he shifted and lifted his head. Flaming sun! He bolted to his hands and knees. The bear charged. That's when Mona screamed. She flung herself off her bedroll and scrambled in the other direction. Don't run, Mona! No, Arlen, put it down! But he had already fitted a dart to the bird, which had been lying in the crook of his arm. He flung it as he scrabbled backward over his bedroll. The bear skidded just short of him, and hurriedly he groped for another dart. I couldn't tell where the first had hit. The bear slapped the ground with both paws. Put it down, Arlen! He flung his atlatl again, but his aim was off in his haste in the dark. The dart burrowed inconsequentially into the bear's foreleg. It charged again. Arlen reeled backwards, scrambling for purchase amid the tangle of bedrolls and cloaks. I was on my feet, stretching my cloak over my shoulders like absurd bat wings. Go on, bear, I shouted. Go on! But the bear wasn't interested in me. It bore down on Arlen, who grappled for the knife at his belt. In a swift move, he loosened it and plunged it into the bear's shoulder. The bear bellowed and cuffed Arlen with a heavy paw, bowling him over. His dart spilled from his hand. The bird sailed off into the brush. He rolled onto his side, clutching his arm. Colm scrambled around the far side of the clearing. Mona, who had frozen in the middle of our campsite, took off running for the underbrush. The bear slapped the ground again and barreled after her. She screamed to wake the dead. "Stop, Mona! Stop running!" In the darkness, I didn't see everything that happened next. The bear staggered sideways, halting its instinctive pursuit. It turned in a half circle, staggered again, and then buckled forward, landing on the pine carpet with a heavy thud. It snorted wetly, once, twice, and then it stilled. 5 paces away stood Colm, the bird lofted in his hand. 2 new darts had found their marks, one deep in the bear's neck, the other between its eyes. A thick silence settled among us. Mona peered around the bole of a tree on the far side of the campsite, clutching her chest. Arlen lay on his side, his hand on his arm. Colm slowly lowered the atlatl, and I stood with my cloak bunched in my hands, my fists pressed to either side of my head. I looked past the dark hulk of the bear to Colm, feeling an unexpected sense of betrayal. It didn't have to die. You didn't have to kill it. It was chasing Mona, he said. Because she ran! I whirled to her. It's because you ran! I spun on Arlen. You stung it with a dart! It was charging, he said angrily, rolling upright. It was bluffing. He pulled his hand away from his bleeding arm and waved it at me. It gouged me. After you stabbed it! Great light! It behaved exactly as expected. You provoked it and it cuffed you. I pointed at Mona. You ran and it chased you. That's what bears do. You'll forgive me if I don't apologize, she said coldly, stepping out from behind the tree. I marched to Arlen, gripped him under his uninjured arm, and hauled him to his feet. You hit me and I hit you back, he said fiercely. I plunged my hand into the pocket of his trousers and drew out a handful of fruit leathers. I told you, I said through clenched teeth, everything goes in the trees at night. I forgot they were there, he said. I was bringing them to you to hang in the bag when we started talking about sick pines. I flung the fruit leathers at his face and then bunched my cloak over my eyes, wanting to scream. Earth and sky, this was as basic as any knowledge we learned as scouts. Most of us came into the Royal Guard already knowing how to act if we crossed paths with a bear. I took several sharp breaths, trying fiercely to channel my anger into something useful. Slowly, I slid the cloak from my eyes. I glared through the darkness at Colm. I'm sorry, he said quietly, but it hurt Arlen, and I thought it was going to hurt Mona. I blew out the last breath I had been holding. I wasn't done being angry with him, but something about his direct, solemn statement made me bite back the rest of my rage. I waved my hand in resigned agitation. It's done. But we can't leave the darts in it. None of my folk would kill a bear just to let it rot in the woods, and when the king's scouts follow the carrion birds, we don't want them finding atlatl darts. I'll get them out, Colm said. Good. Arlen, sit down over there while I get the medical kit. As I headed through the darkness for the tree bearing our packs, I heard Mona say quietly, That was a good shot, Colm. I sucked in a sharp breath, forcing myself to continue to the tree, instead of turning around and letting my anger spill out again. I clambered up the trunk, the needle slapping my face in the darkness. When I reached the line, I paused for a moment, resting my forehead against the rough, sticky bark. I breathed in the clean scent of pine. 3 days. 3 days under the eaves of the Silverwood, and already I was wondering how in the great wide world we could possibly complete this journey without killing one another. If you enjoyed watching this video, please like it and share it. And if you enjoyed what you heard, check out the rest of Woodwalker, available as a paperback or ebook through Harper Voyager Impulse, an imprint of HarperCollins. Woodwalker is a fantasy adventure for young adults and up, full of lots of exciting scenes and survival situations like this one, starring a clever protagonist heading up an impossible quest. The companion to Woodwalker is Ashes to Fire, which releases in February of 2017. Look for both these books on your favorite book retail website, or request them through your local bookstore or library. Thanks for listening. Make sure to follow me on social media for more art and more videos like this one.